Okay, we are with a real trailblazer and a pioneer in cue sports, Michaela Tabb, our head referee. Thanks for coming in, Michaela. How is everything going? You're finally back in the pool world after a few years away. How is it being back into pool?
It's amazing. I love it. It was always my first love. I mean, I achieved so much with snooker, but whenever I went to a pool event, it was what, it lit my fire, always does. It's the kind of place that you could be all day long like we are here, and it's never it's never a grind because you just love it. Yeah, love it.
I think, a lot of us know you from, the pool days when, the World Pool Championships, and maybe those who know the snooker watched you there, but I think obviously we're a pool audience here. They may not know your story, though, and how you got into pool. Can you tell us a little bit about that? You actually started out as a player yourself, playing English 8-ball, is that correct?
Yeah. I met my husband through playing for Scotland, English 8-ball, and I was European champion in '98, so I kind of knew my way around a table on our version anyway. And he had been invited a couple of times into a one-day televised event, which was 9-ball, and we didn't have a ref in Scotland, and he actually put me forward for it, and I did that. That was the first event in September in '97, so nearly 20 years ago, and then was carried on and did another 17 years with that company. So I've got quite a long career around the pool table now.
Now, I imagine that back then you were the only female referee in that world when you first started. What was that like to be in an all-male world where they had never even seen anything like it?
It was, I think there'd maybe been a couple in pool pre-me, but I'm not sure, to what extent. But when I got into the snooker, I was the first professional female ref that they'd ever had.
Yeah, I will. Because pool, obviously in the UK, is a bit of the Wild West, but snooker is a traditional sport. So
Very much so.
I think it needs to be made clear that you were entering not just a man's world, but a sport that is very traditional and has very sort of old values and everything. How did that sit with people?
It was quite daunting because I was very aware that they'd never had a female before at that level, and I was very, very nervous about it, and I hadn't reffed snooker to any great extent either, so I was very nervous about my knowledge of the game and the experience that I needed to get under my belt, obviously, to do the best that I could do. But I was in a very, very lucky position that I had some player support, because I'd reffed a number of them at the American 9-ball, and they knew that I was a good ref, and I did well. So I had Jimmy White and Steve Davis and Ken Doherty. Even having their support at the beginning kind of helped me over, because not everybody took to me, as you could imagine. I was a bit of a threat to a number of the other gentlemen referees at that time. But I just thought, this is an opportunity I've got here. I'm just going to try my hardest, work really hard, and see what comes from it. Yeah, and I can't. It's just been amazing. The career I had with that was amazing. So every match I did was like the first time a female had reffed a last 32 match, a last 16 match, a last quarter-final, a semi-final, then the final. So I did my first final, then it was the first Masters final, then my first World final. It was just constantly ticking boxes.
What was that like when you did the World final? What year was that, by the way?
2007.
World Snooker.
No, it wasn't. It was 2009. My first final was 2007. The World Championship final was 2009. Yeah.
2009.
Yeah.
So what was that like before, when you're about to go on and?
It was unbelievable. They told me nearly a year in advance. I found out at the beginning of the season for 2008, 2009, and I put myself under so much pressure for the whole of that season, because I was terrified I'd do something wrong, which is stupid, but your mind plays tricks on you in that kind of a situation. So when I actually got to the actual World Championships itself, it was like a relief, because the time waiting had finally, was over. And when I stepped out there, when I was called out to go down the steps into the lion's pit, effectively, it was amazing, absolutely amazing. because you've got a one table situation, so the whole audience is, you know, clapping and cheering and appreciating that you're coming out. And the thing that was most important to me was like, don't fall down those steps. I don't know if you've seen it. There's about 4 steps you've got to walk down.
Yeah.
Don't fall down those steps. Don't fall down those steps. I could just see myself, you know, right on my arse. You know, it was fantastic.
Everything went well in that final?
It was perfect. Absolutely perfect. And when you get out there, once you start, your confidence comes and you take over and you go in and do the job. It just, you know, to begin with, everything's flying around, your butterflies are all over the place, you know, your heart's racing, but you settle down and do the job, because at the end of the day I was picked to do it based on the years of experience that I had and the fact that I was a good ref. I wasn't just picked out of a hat on that day. So I had to take consolation from that and go, no, you've been chosen because you're good at what you do, so, you know, believe in yourself and do the job.
So what, along the way to this journey to be, you know, to the heights of World Snooker, what kind of setbacks did you experience or brickbats did you have to accept from the men in the sport? Did you ever hear anything from, say, players who said things out of line because you were a woman, or other officials in the sport?
There was only one time I actually took complete umbrage to somebody, and it was printed in a magazine, and it really upset me, and it was in the Masters final, because nobody had ever said anything to my face. Everybody had been very, very respectful to my face, and in this Masters final, printed in this magazine was a letter that somebody had written into the magazine that said, I can't believe the referee was wearing such low-cut tops. Now, if you know me, I don't do low-cut tops. From the minute I walked into World Snooker, everything to me had to be traditional and respectful, because I didn't want to walk in as a sexy female. I wanted to be a female referee. I didn't want anything to be taken away from the job I was doing. So it was so upsetting, on one hand, to think that somebody had thought that, you know, that it was a low-cut top, which was coming across here. It wasn't as if it was up around my neck. But the other thing was, well, why did the magazine feel it was necessary to print that? Because actually that was as bad as the fact that the person has written this letter, because they're almost condoning, and that was somebody within the industry, and I thought, oh, you know,
sounds like a way to sell magazines.
Yeah, there's always that, I suppose, yeah.
But you have never been shy off the table about showing a bit of glamour, and anybody can look up your pictures on Google. And I mean, you are quite the glamorous woman, and you definitely show it online, and you seem to be happy with that.
Yeah, I don't, you know, away from the table, that's one thing, but I wouldn't walk out in a professional match, and because that's not what it's all about. You know, it's the viewers, the people who are the most important, whether it's 8-ball, 9-ball, 10-ball, or snooker, are the two players that are at the table. There should never be anything to detract from them. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure the guys think it's nice to have a bit of eye candy there, but not to the point that you're dressing in any way unsuitable. But maybe that's because I'm a little bit older and more traditional. Yeah. Let's go back to the pool world. What's the most memorable moment from your days of doing the World Pool Championship, or like the World Pool Masters, those events that you used to do and that we all in the pool world know you from? I would imagine most of our fans think it was the Earl Strickland incident when he had an argument and then he gave you flowers the next day. Yeah.
Is that one of them?
Yeah, that's definitely up there at the top. It was at the time it was quite horrific, because suddenly this argument had blown up from nowhere. But we all know, you know, Earl's quite highly strung and he's very, very emotional, and so he's having this disagreement with the person in the crowd, and Steve's at the table and trying to calm him down. But Steve Davis, he's a cool customer. So I remember he turned around and said, "Can I have a bathroom break?" And he just knew he was just giving everything a time to, you know, just calm down and whatnot. And I said to Earl, you know, it was quite, I thought a little bit more than I obviously said, but it's like, you know, you can't talk when he's at the table, you need to behave, and la la la. But the big thing for that was when he came in the next day with the flowers on live TV, because that was like what had happened had played out in front of millions of viewers, and then his response to that actually played out in front of millions of viewers as well, because it was a public apology, which was lovely. Yeah.
What are some of the keys to being a good referee?
It's very, very much concentration. That's the biggest thing. When anybody says, what do you need to be able to do? You must focus. And if you're not focused, you must look like you're focused, because the players need to trust that you're watching what's going on the table. So you have to try to the best of your ability and constantly focus on what's going on the table. And that's you got to train yourself to do that, to try and stay with it. And if you're gazing around like this all the time, you're not making yourself. You've got to mentally put everything into it. Then you gain the trust of the players, and then everything is so much easier, because you're not going to have anybody. They don't question your judgment so much, because they know actually you're on it, or you're in the right place.
You are. I mean, you have quite a reputation for being no nonsense. I don't think I've ever seen anything get by you. And when there is an issue, you stop the match and go, no, this is what's happening. I just made the call, and that's it.
Yeah, if I believe it's 100% and I've got nowhere to go, I always go with my gut instinct. I've learned over the years that you only have a split second sometimes to see a shot, and you've got to go with your gut if you've got nowhere else to go. If you're in the lucky position, we've maybe got a replay, then I believe we should go to the replay, because you should always go forward with the correct decision if you've got opportunity to do that. Failing that is my decision. My decision's final, and we'll move on. But I've never been overly harsh if I've thought I was wrong. I've always tried to be right. I think that's the way to be.
Give us a sense of how popular you are. I imagine do you get contacted by people, pool fans and snooker fans from all over the world? And
oh yeah. I remember actually way back when we did the first World Championships, the Matchroom one, because what you don't realise that you've got maybe 30 million watching at the end of the television. You don't know. A camera is
especially
almost
in
like
Asia.
Exactly. And someone came up to me after Efren had won and said, "Oh, you're famous in the Philippines." I didn't even know where the Philippines was, and someone's telling me, that I'm famous. And the first time I went out there,
well, you needed bodyguards.
Oh my gosh! I thought I could go and get a Burger King, a cup of coffee in the Burger King. I couldn't get back. It was terrifying. I was surrounded, and they actually had to get a couple of folk to come and get me and say, "Don't you go out. You want a cup of coffee or whatever? You let us know."
Can you imagine?
Oh my gosh!
I can tell you too, because I still live in the Philippines, and you would still be mobbed if you went there today.
Wow.
You're still known. I mean, you are a personality. I can imagine also, let's say in China, also where let's say snooker is very popular.
Yeah, you don't go in China either. They're really scary. It's very similar. I think everybody thinks you're maybe only going to be there for 5 minutes, so they crowd you, and it's actually it's quite kind of crushing, because they're coming at you from different sides. Someone's taking a photograph of that side of you, and someone's taking a photograph of that side, and someone's trying to come from behind, and it can get quite scary.
Amazing.
So I spend a lot of time in my hotel room.
Amazing. So now you started out as an English 8-ball player, and now you're reffing 8-ball. It seems to be quite a journey for you. You've sort of come home here at the World Pool Series. Does this seem like a natural fit for you?
It's unbelievable. I'm absolutely loving it. I mean, the rules are different than English 8-ball, but now I got myself into a state reading them all, because reading rules is one thing, but actually you need to get on the table and get out there to feel comfortable. And then as soon as I stepped out on my first match, it was like, what were you worrying about? This is your natural thing. You know what you're doing. It was just kind of, gosh, it's been a couple of years since I've been on the pool table, apprehension or whatever. But as soon as you get out there, it's like switch the button and off we go.
Fantastic.
It's amazing. I love it.
Michaela, I can tell you that everybody here at the World Pool Series is delighted to have you on board, and we look forward to seeing you again at the grand finale, which is going to be here at Steinway Billiards in September, late September.
My flight's booked. I'm coming.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us.
You're very welcome.
Our head referee, the legend, Michaela Tabb.